Everybody, this is Ken with another episode of Ken's Travels. In this episode, I'm going to talk to you about the top 5 excuses that people make for not traveling. What I want to say to you is, if you want to travel, then travel. I don't want to hear about excuses because guess what? Excuses get you nowhere in life. With that said, we're going to talk about excuse number 1. Excuse number 1, which is the most important excuse I hear from everybody, is that it's too expensive. It's not too expensive. If you want to be bougie and you want to take 8 suitcases with 3 of the suitcases full of shoes and heels, and you got to take 28 outfits for just 5 days, then yeah, it's going to become quite expensive, especially paying for those baggage and luggage fees, etc. But again, you don't have to do that. I always look at it like it's about the experience. If I get to see the Eiffel Tower, if I get to see the Taj Mahal, if I get to see the Berlin Wall, that's what's important to me. Or if you want to go there even for clubbing and nightlife and see an experience, maybe even you go in there to find your husband and wife, or maybe in that case, then maybe you want to dress a little bit sexier and a little bit better than what you ordinarily would. But it's not about that. It's about the experience. To be able to see another country, to be able to see its culture, to be able to see its history, to be able to see its historic landmarks. It's not about being the jazziest or the cutest. It's not about always staying in 5-star hotels. It's not about just splurging to just act like you're just super rich or like the lifestyles of the rich and famous. You don't have to do that. You can stay in an Airbnb, you can stay in a hostel. You don't have to stay in a 5 or 4-star hotel and pay an arm and a leg. Airbnbs are perfectly fine. You can rent out an entire apartment for your duration, or you could rent out a room and just stay with somebody. I've done that twice, and it was perfectly fine, no issues. You also can go to a hostel. I know a lot of people think of hostels and they think of the movie, but I promise you it's not as bad as that movie. Everything in movies is a bit exaggerated. Hostels aren't for everybody. I tried it this last time and I stayed in 5 different hostels when I went to the 5 different countries. For me personally, it's not for me, but I wouldn't hesitate to do it again if I could save some money if I wanted to and I needed to. The main thing when you stay in hostels is that, sometimes you can meet other people with language barriers. Sometimes certain people have sleep habits. I had one person who was making all these strange noises, almost as if it seemed like they were in a previous war or something, and screaming out in the middle of the night. That was a little bit weird, but for the most part, the hostels were fine. Another thing is, if you're planning far enough in advance, you can also find a lot of great deals on things versus if you wait to the last minute. Of course, you're going to pay more for things. That's with anywhere. So I don't want to hear an excuse from you saying that you can't travel because it's too expensive. It is not, and you can find ways to save money, especially if you plan accordingly and if you plan soon enough. Excuse number 2 is people say they're scared. Suck it up, buttercup. Guess what? Everybody's scared in life. You were scared to ride your first bicycle. You were scared to parallel park when you were first getting your driver's license. You were scared to get on your first plane. You're scared anytime you start a new job. That doesn't matter. You never let fear be a detriment to do what it is that you want to do in life. If you want to travel, travel. If you want to get on a plane, if you have to get on a plane to get overseas, get on that plane and go overseas. If you have to get on a train to go from here to Nevada, get on that train and go to Nevada. Traveling is something entirely different than, let's say, bungee jumping. You don't have to do bungee jumping. Bungee jumping may be something that you don't even want to do, but you want to travel. So don't use fear as an excuse. One day when you're 80 years old and you're on your last leg in that hospital bed and about to die, I don't want you to live a life and have regrets where, I wish I could have went here, I wish I could have did this, or I wish I could have did that. No, you're not going to wish anything because you're going to do it. You're going to go on your trip, you're going to travel, and you're not going to make any excuses about it. Excuse number 3. People say that they don't have time. A lot of people always use the excuse to, my job won't let me off. I don't know, I have so much work to do. I'm on call, this, that, etc. If you let your job know far enough in advance that you're going to travel and you make a trip, if your job's not going to give you that time off, then maybe you need to reevaluate where you're working at. You bust your ass for your job needs to make a couple accommodations for you too. Don't ever let your job bully you into submission where you can't even take no time off for yourself. Everybody needs a vacation. Everybody needs time off. Especially if you're worried about cost expenditures, you're going to be planning this trip far enough in advance anyway that you're not even going to have to worry about that. If you're worried about cost expenditures, plan your trip 10 to 12 months in advance. If you let your job know 10 months or 12 months in advance that you're taking a trip and they tell you no again, then it's probably time to move on from that job. Plan everything in advance, pencil that time in, pencil that day in, and just tell them I'm taking it off. And if they have a problem with it, then they can kick rocks. That's just my opinion. That's how I deal with jobs and deal with things. But I can't completely give that advice to you. You have to do what works for you. At the end of the day, you have bills to pay, a family and kids, etc. You have to do what works for you. But don't let your job bully you into submission where you feel as if you can't ever take any time off. Number 4, people always say that they're scared to travel alone. If you're scared to travel alone, then travel with somebody else then. I'm sure friends and family, etc. else wants to go with you. But I will say this, if you do travel with somebody else, make sure that they're serious about traveling, because there's too many friends and family that always say, oh, you're always traveling, you're always going on trips, why don't you take me? Those be the same ones who be indecisive. Those be the same ones who make excuses. Those be the same ones who cancel on you. Those be the same ones who don't come up with their money. So if you're going to travel with somebody, make sure that that person is responsible and make sure that that person is serious. Basically, if you're scared to travel alone, again, you have to get over that. I promise you, if you travel alone and you go to a foreign country on your own, and once you conquer that and accomplish that, if you mess up and you get kidnapped and they harvest your organs, or you miss your flight back to America, I'm sorry, then I guess that's not going to be such a great experience. But that's why you plan in advance, and you plan meticulously in advance, and you try your best to try to make sure a situation like that does not happen. If you're have bad sleep habits and you oversleep for the airport, I mean, I hate to say it, but that's your problem and that's your fault. But again, don't let that be an excuse or a detriment from you sitting there trying to travel. And number 5, last of all, I would say is when you go to travel, there's always going to be a bunch of negative Nancy's out there, a bunch of people who's always going to try to discourage you from doing anything that it is that you want to do in life. But we're not going to let them do that, because you know what? A lot of times those people are miserable. Those people are jealous. A lot of times those people are just mad that they can't do it themselves. We're going to ignore them and we're going to do it anyway. Yes.
I think it would be too expensive for you to go overseas. And I also don't think you're going at the right time of year when it comes to weather. And also, will something happen to you? You don't got no contacts out there. You don't know nobody out there. So I just really think you should stay at home or travel in the States. And you don't know about the rooms you stay in. You don't know about the Airbnbs. You don't know nothing. You just go into strangers' houses. You don't know anything about nothing. And that's about it. But I really think you should stay in the States or travel within the 50 states. I don't think you should go overseas, especially not the time of year that you're going. Okay.
Because when you go on any type of trip, your friends or family can be some of the most negative people when you're trying to go somewhere. I know when I went to London and Paris back in March of last year, there were people saying, why would you go in March? It's too cold. You need to go during a warm time of year. You need to go when it's not cold. You need to go when it's not raining. Excuse me. Last time I checked, this is my trip. And if I'm okay with going in March, then it doesn't matter whether you're okay with me going in March, because this is my trip. I went in March because, one, I was trying to save money. People make a mistake often of going in the summer months or going to the busy peak periods. Well, guess what? When you go during those busy peak periods, you're going to pay a hell of a lot more money for travel expenses, for room and board, accommodations, etc. I did that because I didn't want to have to pay a whole bunch of money by going to the peak period. Also, I didn't want to deal with the crowds. Less crowds, the better for me. If you go during the peak periods, you're going to be around a bunch of people, and it's going to drive you absolutely crazy if you're the type of person who doesn't want to be around all those crowds. So there was a method to my madness when I decided to go in March. So I don't need someone who's never traveled before trying to tell me when is the appropriate time for me to travel. Another thing they'll say is you can't just go over there wearing anything. For me, I'm not going overseas just to wear my Sunday church finest. I'm going for the experience. A lot of times you're going to be doing a lot of walking. You might be doing hiking, etc. And if you're going over there trying to be a glamour model, how are you going to do all that? So don't worry about that. A lot of times your friends, as with anything else in life, whether you're about to quit your job and take a leap of faith, whether you're about to move to a new city, your friends and family can be some of the most negative people anytime that you're trying to do and accomplish something. But again, guess what? We're not going to let them get in the way of you taking your next trip. Take your trip. Those people are miserable. Sometimes those people are envious. Sometimes those people are jealous. Sometimes those people are afraid. We're not going to let somebody else put their fear and their insecurity and their negativity off on you to stop what it is that you want to do and accomplish in life. So take your trip and let them be envious or who cares? Because after you take your trip, they're going to be like, if they thought you were an idiot or thought you were dumb or thought that you could never do it, we're going to prove them wrong and show them that you're way more resourceful than they ever give you credit for. So those are my top 5 reasons that people make excuses for not taking trips internationally. But as I said before, that's not going to be us and that's not going to be you. So my question to you is, where are you going? Where are we going next? Let me know in the comments, like, subscribe, and peace until the next time.